Hey, welcome. You ever stop and just wonder how we do it? How we take these simple little puffs of air from our lungs and somehow turn them into epic stories, or super complex ideas, or even just a simple, I love you. Well, it turns out there's this incredible hidden architecture behind every single word you speak. So today, let's go on a tour and uncover the blueprint of language, from the very first sound all the way to the final meaning. So, yeah, this is the big question, right? How does that even work? It honestly feels like magic, but it's not magic. It's actually a fascinating kind of engineering, and it all happens in three main steps. We're going to start with the raw materials, then we'll look at the blueprints, and finally, we'll see how the words themselves actually get built. Okay, first things first. We have to start at the most fundamental level you can imagine, the physical act of just making sounds. This is the world of phonetics. I want you to think of it as the raw, vibrating clay that all language is sculpted from. Phonetics is basically the pure physics of speech. It doesn't care at all about what a sound means. Not yet, anyway. It only cares about what it is. How your tongue and your lips and your vocal cords all work together to shape the air, how that sound wave travels, and then how it actually lands in a listener's ear. It's the science of the sound itself. And this journey, the journey of a single sound, has three really distinct stages. It all starts with the articulatory part. That's the physical movements happening inside your mouth. Then you've got the acoustic stage, which is all about the sound wave itself as it's literally flying through the air. And finally, the auditory stage is how our ears and brain catch that signal and figure out what it is. It's a complete physical chain from the speaker all the way to the listener. And look, this isn't just some dusty, abstract theory. This is the core science that allows your phone or your smart speaker to understand what you're saying. For Alexa to know the difference between play music and pay Susan, it has to be an absolute expert in phonetics. Okay, so we have our raw materials, all those sounds. But, a giant pile of bricks doesn't make a house, right? You need a blueprint. And that's where phonology comes in. It's the set of rules that each language uses to organize all those sounds into a system that actually makes sense. So here's the crucial difference. While phonetics studies all the possible sounds a human can make, phonology studies only the specific sounds that actually matter in a particular language. It's the difference between just a random noise and a sound that your brain immediately recognizes as being part of English or Spanish or Japanese. So phonology looks at a bunch of things. The stress you put on certain syllables, the musical rise and fall of your voice when you ask a question, and how we chop words up into syllables. But the most important concept here, the absolute bedrock of the whole system, is something called the phoneme. A phoneme is the smallest, tiniest unit of sound that can actually change the entire meaning of a word. It's this tiny little thing with just an immense amount of power. Let me show you exactly what I mean. Okay, here it is, the power of the phoneme in action. Just look at the words pin and bin. Physically, the sounds p and b are incredibly similar. But in the rulebook for English, in our phonology, that one tiny little change creates two completely different meanings. This is what we call a minimal pair, and it's the proof that tells us p and b are two totally distinct phonemes in English. Pretty cool, right? All right, we've got our raw sounds from phonetics, and we've got the rules to organize them from phonology. Now it's time for the final phase of construction, actually building the words themselves. So, welcome to the awesome world of morphology. Okay, so if phonemes are the smallest units of sound, then morphemes are the smallest units of meaning. Morphology is basically the study of how we stick these little bits of meaning together to form words. It's like we're playing with language Legos. And there are two main types of these little meaning bricks. You got free morphemes, like book or happy. They can stand all by themselves, no problem. But then you have bound morphemes, like un, ing, or ness. These guys are a little needy. They have meaning, for sure, but they have to be attached to another morpheme to make any sense. And the ways we build new words are just beautiful. They're almost like little math equations. We use affixation, adding prefixes and suffixes to get unhappy. We use compounding, where we just smash two words together to make blackboard. We even do this cool thing called conversion, where we take a noun like Google and turn it into the verb to Google. So, let's recap. We've journeyed from raw sound to organized patterns, and then to meaningful words. Now let's just pull it all together and see exactly how these pieces of the puzzle fit. This chart gives us a perfect side-by-side comparison. On one hand, you have phonology. That's all about the sound patterns, the system of pronunciation. Its star player is the phoneme, like the difference between a k and a g sound. On the other hand, you have morphology. That's all about building words, all about meaning. Its star player is the morpheme, like combining un and happy. One's about sound, the other is about meaning. Simple as that. You know, this is probably the best way to remember it all. Phonetics gives us the raw clay, phonology provides the architectural blueprints for how to use that clay, and morphology, that's the act of actually building something meaningful with it. A word, an idea, a piece of genuine communication. And that brings us to the end. We've just uncovered the basic architecture that you're using effortlessly every single second of every day. But really, this is just the beginning. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? If these fundamental, hidden rules are operating just beneath the surface, what other incredible secrets are hiding in the words you speak every single day? Have you ever stopped to think about how incredible language is? I mean, how do we actually do it? How do we take simple sounds and spin them into these huge, complex ideas, stories, and connections? Well, it might feel like magic, but it's all thanks to this hidden system, this secret blueprint. And today, we are unlocking it by looking at two of its master architects, phonology and morphology. Really, it all boils down to this one question. How does something totally meaningless, like a little puff of air, a sound like p, somehow become part of a complex idea like unhappiness? It seems impossible, right? But it's actually part of a brilliant system that, and this is the best part, you've already mastered. Okay, so to understand this magic, we have to start with the absolute basics, the raw materials of language. So, let's kick things off with the science of sound itself. Let's talk about phonology. So, what is phonology exactly? Well, think of it like the rule book for all the sounds in a language. It's not just a boring list of sounds. No, it's a whole system that explains how those sounds are organized, how they behave, and, most importantly, how they work together to make one word different from another. Let's see just how powerful one tiny sound can be. I want you to say these two words out loud right now. Pin and now bin. Did you feel that? When you say pin, there's that little puff of air. With bin, there isn't. That one tiny difference between the P and B sounds completely changes the meaning of the word. And that is phonology in action. And phonology is about way more than just these individual sounds, which linguists call phonemes, by the way, the smallest little units of sound. It's also about the music and the rhythm of our language. It's what gives words their beat, through syllables, like the two beats in table. It tells us where to put the emphasis, the stress. Like, is it an object or are you going to object? And it's also in charge of intonation, that rising and falling melody of our voice that can turn a statement into a question. Okay, so if phonology gives us the raw sounds, the building blocks, what's next? Well, now we have to actually build something with them. So we're moving up a level from sounds to structure with the art of building words, an introduction to morphology. So morphology is what picks up right where phonology leaves off. It's the study of how we assemble those sounds into chunks that actually have meaning to build words. And that is the crucial difference right there. We are no longer talking about units of sound. Now we're talking about the smallest units of meaning. And those are called morphemes. Let's actually watch this happen. Let's build a word together. First, we start with a root, a core idea like happy. Then we can stick a prefix on the front, un, which we all know means not. Then we can attach a suffix to the end, ness, which means a state of being. And just like that, we've snapped together three little morphemes to construct a brand new, complex idea, unhappiness. Now these little building blocks of meaning come in two main types. First, you've got your free morphemes. These are words that are perfectly fine all on their own. Like book or play or happy. But then you have the bound morphemes. Think of these as the clingy ones. They have meaning, for sure, but they have to be attached to another morpheme to make any sense. Parts like un, re, and nis. And believe me, the word-building fun does not stop there. Morphology is super creative. We do stuff like compounding, where we just smash two words together, like black and board, to make blackboard. We use reduplication all the time when we say things like bye-bye or chit-chat. And we even do this cool thing called conversion, where we totally change a word's job, like when the noun Google magically became the verb to Google something. All right, we've looked at the science of sound, and we've looked at the art of building words.
So now let's put them head to head. Let's bring them both together to really make sure we've got the core difference locked in.
So after all that, if you strip everything else away, what's the single biggest takeaway here? What's the bottom line?
Here it is side by side. Phonology is all about sounds. Its basic unit is the phoneme, the smallest unit of sound. So think pronunciation, stress, the tiny difference between a cut and a gust sound. Now, morphology is all about words. Its basic unit is the morpheme, the smallest unit of meaning. Think prefixes, suffixes, and roots, like how we built unhappy. So if you remember one thing, remember this. One is about sound, the other is about meaning. Simple as that.
So why does any of this really matter? Well, it turns out that digging into all this complex theory actually reveals something pretty incredible about the real expert here. And that expert is you. No, really, think about this for a second. You use all of these incredibly complex rules every single day, perfectly, without even thinking about it. Nobody ever sat you down for a lesson on the puff of air in PIN. You just know. You are an unconscious genius, completely fluent in a system you never even realized you were studying. And that, right there, is the truly amazing part. It kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? As you go about the rest of your day, just start listening to yourself, to other people talking, and then think bigger. What other hidden rules are you following every single day? Not just in language, but in everything you do, without even knowing it.